Call the meeting to order. Those who care to, please stand for an opening prayer and pledge of allegiance. Mr. Cameron, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day, and thank you for all you do for us. Lord, I just pray that you would just guide and direct us in all that we do and say and the decisions that we consider before our city tonight. Lord, we just pray for our leaders and pray for our national leaders as well. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we have a couple of proclamations that we'll go over tonight. The first one is National Foster Care Month, and we have Tabitha Alshire with the Children's Service, is a Children's Service Specialist with the Greene County Children's Division, and then also Allison Gregory from Foster Adopt Connect, and those two will be accepting these proclamations tonight. So, I will read, whereas all children deserve a safe, loving, and permanent home, and whereas the primary goal of the foster care system is to ensure the safety and well-being of children while working to provide a safe, loving, and permanent home for each child. And whereas approximately 13,000 children are living in foster care in Missouri. And whereas foster parents are the frontline caregivers for children who cannot safely remain with their biological parents, who provide physical care, emotional support, and education advocacy for the children in their care, and are the largest single source of families providing permanent homes for children transitioning from foster care to adoption. And whereas children in foster care who are placed with relatives compared to children placed with non-relatives have more stability, including fewer changes in placements, have more positive perceptions of their placements, and more likely to be placed with their siblings, and demonstrate fewer behavioral problems. And whereas foster care is intended to be a temporary placement, yet children remain in the foster care system for an average of 2 years. And now, therefore, I, Jeff Usry, Mayor for the City of Republic and the State of Missouri, do hereby proclaim May 2019 as National Foster Care Month. And I encourage all citizens to recognize the accomplishments of the child welfare workforce, foster parents, the advocacy community, and mentors for their dedication, accomplishments, and positive impact on the lives of children. In testimony whereof I have hereunto set my hand and affix the seal of the City of Republic, Missouri, this 7th day of May, 2019. So ladies, if you'd like to come up. You want to take a group picture, or you want one at a time?
Group is good.
I will have you both hold your proclamations. I'm going to just stand here. Don't want to say anything? You're more than welcome. I'm trying to shame you into it.
I don't know if I need that, but
If you get so the people at home can hear you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Again, my name is Allison Gregory. I'm the Executive Director at Foster Adopt Connect. And we just want to thank the City of Republic for recognizing this very important month. It is, your statistics in your proclamation were very true. And it's something that we have over 500 kids in Greene County alone. So, and what are we, 132 homes, foster homes? So, obviously there's a lot of kids in care, but not a lot of places for them to go. So we just ask that if you can't adopt, foster, if you can't foster, get involved by being educated and donating and helping all of the organizations like Foster Adopt Connect that are in our community, because there are so many of us, because it does take a village to help these kiddos and the families who are trying to raise them. So we appreciate everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Tabitha Alshire. I'm with the Greene County Children's Division. I'm a specialist there, and pretty much just what Allison said. We have so many kids just in Greene County that deserve to have a loving place to stay that's safe and that keeps them safe. And unfortunately, we don't always find good placements for our kiddos. So we definitely need more. So if your heart is open to having a child in your home, please let us know. We'd be happy to help work with you on that, and it's completely free. So,
all right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And we want to thank you guys again for what you do, because the children, they don't have any choice in what's happened to put them in this position, and without people advocating for them, there's no telling what would happen. So thank you guys for what you do. Moving on, the next proclamation will be another thing that's near and dear to our hearts, and that's Republic City Employee Appreciation Week. Whereas Republic City employees are committed to public service and perform their jobs with professionalism, compassion, dedication, and pride. And whereas public service is a noble calling involving a wide variety of challenging and rewarding professions, including providing vital family, health, and educational services, maintaining public safety, improving transportation, protecting our environment, and performing management activities which are essential to the efficient and effective operation of our city. And whereas Republic City Employee Appreciation Week strives to inform our citizens about the quality of our people, their commitment to high ethical standards, and the value of the services they perform to increase the satisfaction of those who are being served. Whereas, may this commemoration provide an opportunity for all citizens of our community to pay tribute to the profession and spirit of public service and to express our deep appreciation for the many contributions Republic City employees make to our daily lives. Now therefore, I, Jeff Usry, Mayor for the City of Republic, Missouri, do hereby proclaim the week of May 13th through 17th, 2019 as Republic City Employee Appreciation Week. In testimony whereof, I am hereunto set my hand and affix the seal of the City of Republic this 7th day of May, AD 2019. And Ms. Lisa Addington, our Human Resources Director, is going to accept this on behalf of all of our great employees, because we couldn't fit them all in the same room. So, we can try. And Mike Landis is one to get to know us.
As the HR director, it's truly an honor to work for an entity that truly values our employees. I think we have the great employees, second to none. But I also want to sincerely thank every city employee, all of our city staff, for their hard work and dedication. It truly is a calling, and I'm grateful to accept this. Thank you.
Thank you. And to all of our city employees, the great growth that we have going on right now really depends on having that great service. So we are so fortunate to have all the people that we do, and grateful every day because it's an amazing team. I also have a proclamation for Teacher Appreciation Week, which I will not read because they're not here, but it is May 6th through 10th of 2019 is going to be Teacher Appreciation Week. So we will make sure we mail them several copies of that proclamation. And that is all of the proclamations. That was most of the meeting. All right, at this point, I'd like to open I would like to open citizen participation. Anyone who would like to speak to anything not on the agenda, please step to the podium, state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Anyone wishing to speak to anything not on the agenda? Seeing none, citizen participation is closed.
There's one on here called substance abuse.
They're not here either. We'll mail it to them. Moving on, I need a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda.
Motion. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Boards, commissions, and committee schedule of note. The next city council meeting will be May 21st, 2019, which I will not be here, Mr. Russell, and followed by June 4th, 2019. Both of those to be held here at City Hall. Charlie's gonna bring popcorn. Moving on to old business and tabled items, I need a motion and a second for the second reading of bill number 19-05.
Motion.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Ms. Laura?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, amending the municipal code of the City of Republic, Missouri, Chapter 235, Solid Waste Management by amending Section 235.010, Definitions, and adding Section 235.020, Yard Waste Disposal Site.
Okay, I need a motion and a second for final approval of bill number 19-05.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. We had a presentation of this by Mr. Nelson at the last meeting. Are there any questions from council? Anything that needs to be refreshed before we move on to the vote? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilmember Dykeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Self.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Councilmember Russell.
Aye.
Councilmember Franklin.
Aye.
Councilmember Bashirs.
Aye.
Councilmember Poole.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. On to new business. Need a motion and a second for the first reading of bill number 19-06.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Ms. Laura?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, amending the budget for fiscal year 2019.
Thank you, Ms. Parks.
Good evening. We have before us a resolution to amend our check signers. As you're aware, we bank at the Bank of Missouri, and part of their protocol for,
Debbie, wrong agenda. That's
oh,
the budget.
oh, I'm so sorry. It's been a long day. We'll start over. I guess I should have been a little bit more nervous coming up here. Okay, so under Chapter 67 of RSMO, the city charter, it requires us to do budget amendments as needed on our funds if we look like we're going to be over anticipated fund balances. Since I have arrived, we've started doing this a couple times during the year, where we actually look through all of our budget items to make sure that any projects that have changed, or as you guys approve items throughout the year, we make a notation and then we just save them for one time to do a budget amendment. So I would just like to briefly, since this is a first read, go through some of the items that are key to this budget amendment. Let's see. One of the biggest changes was to our CIS fund, which is the Capital Improvement Sales Tax Fund. As you're aware, we were very fortunate to be able to purchase our land for the animal shelter this year. We actually started the project last year and had hoped that it would be able to be finished, but because of circumstances, this is the year that it happened. Now that we have our location, we were able to proceed with our design work on the animal shelter, and as of last week, we actually have firm costs for the construction of the building. And so that is why we have added that to this budget amendment. As you're aware, our sales tax fund, we can deficit spend. Basically, what that means is we could dip into the cash reserve. So since we didn't spend the funds for last year's project, they're sitting there available to be added for this project. In addition to that, we have the gateway signs. Those were also started last year. The design work got started, but due to the length of the process, it's ended up in this year's budget. Once again, because the funds were not spent last year, they have been added into this year's budget so we could finish up those projects appropriately. In order to make the fund balance, you can see that we looked and examined some of the other projects and brought some of those amounts down. You'll see those listed in our exhibit line item breakdown. Another thing that happened is our wastewater and water funds. We have moved our meter technicians over to the Public Works Department, so I did the housekeeping to basically move their salaries over to that appropriate department. And another larger item was our stormwater fund. We actually have a change order associated with our comprehensive plan. They're wrapping up their comprehensive plans, but they decided to add on a stormwater design manual, and so, or tweak what they had originally proposed. So they did a change order with Burns McDonnell, and that is now included in this budget amendment. There are also some minor budget amendments that we did to just do some housekeeping when we realized actual costs that came in this year, but they are listed line by line, so you can see clearly what is reflected under the Exhibit A. Revenue will be listed on one column, expenses on the other. The only revenue that we adjusted was the transfers, administrative transfers for the utility fund. I normally do not adjust revenue projections during the year. We're not required to, only expenses. So, if anyone has any questions, since this is a first read, I'd be more than happy to answer any of them over the next 2 weeks for you, or here at this meeting. But just the bottom line of the ordinance is that we will be decreasing the general fund by $24,541 in expenditures. The wastewater will be increased by $21,930. The I'm sorry, that was the water fund. The wastewater fund will be increased by $27,929. And the stormwater fund, which is the McDonald project, was $55,800. And the street fund is increased by $5,500. And then, last but not least, the overall capital improvement sales tax fund is increased by $73,751 after we made all those adjustments. So, thank you.
Okay, any questions, comments, or concerns from council?
I have a question.
Mr. Ruff?
These amounts, are they in line with what they typically are this, I understand this to be a yearly or requirement. Is it in line with what we typically do? Is there anything that's outside the norm or anything that's larger or smaller or surprising?
The only one that is, the others are more just routine. The thing that is larger is the animal shelter. That was due just because, we were not able to get the land purchased in time to do the project last year, and also the gateway sign. So yeah, the larger project that was not anticipated to carry over to this year were those two projects.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Anything else from council? Okay, seeing nothing, remember this is first read, get Ms. Parks for the next meeting. If you have any questions, thank you. Actually, you gotta stay up there, because now we're gonna move on to the other one. Resolution number 19-R-14, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, appointing authorized signers with Bank of Missouri. Need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second. Have a motion and a second, Ms. Parks.
Okay. We currently bank with Bank of Missouri, and they have a requirement, which is a good internal control, that we have our council elects who, approves who our check signers are. Normally, the way that we have it set up is our mayor and our mayor pro tem are our check signers, in addition to me, the finance director. Currently, we had an election at the last council meeting, and we have a new mayor pro tem, which is Matt Russell, so congratulations. You get to sign a lot of checks.
Awesome.
Because of that, though, we need to have the official resolution today in order to have you added on officially to the bank account.
Okay, any questions, comments, or concerns? No concerns from Mr. Russell. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, ma'am. Moving on, resolution number 19-R-15. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, awarding the bid for the re-roof of the Republic Police Department facility. Motion and a second?
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second, right? Did I hear that? Okay. Mr. Keeling and Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you. Happy to bring this project here for you tonight. It's been on our radar for a number of years. As you can see, it's a large project. It's just one of those things we've had difficulty finding funding for and fitting in the budget. But the police department was built 01, 02, 03. The original roof is on there, so 17, 18, 19-year-old facility. A good competitive bid process. Wayne can talk about scope of work, specs, warranty, etc. But we had 4 companies reply to our bid invitation. The low bid ended up being Roof One LLC in the amount of $54,995. The next low was $61,685. Wayne has done his diligence and checked with them. Roof One, we were unfamiliar with them at the time, but the references have checked out very, very well. So, but I'll let Wayne answer any questions you might have in regards to all the other specifications.
Sure, any questions or comments from council? Ms. Poole?
Where is Roof One located?
Where are they headquartered? Do you know Route 1?
Carthage, Missouri.
Carthage?
Carthage.
Just curious, because I never heard of them.
What kind of roof is it? Is it a flat roof?
It's a combination. Most of it is shingle roof, but we have about 5 flat roofs on there. And they have a bitumen roof on there right now, and we're going to go with a TPL roof, which is similar to what we've got on these facilities here, a 60 mil. It's kind of like a pool liner. It's a real heavy-duty roof, and will go right over the top of the existing roof that's there, so there'll be no tear-off on that portion. On the shingle portion, it's a 1-layer tear-off, so that entire roof will come off and be hauled away. New felt. We are going to stay with the existing drip edge. That building has a real unique gutter system on it, very, very deep, because they built the soffit way out. And to try to match that would be custom if we go with new drip edge, so we went ahead and stayed with the existing drip edge, so we wouldn't have to try to match that and have all that metal broken. It would cost an excessive amount.
Yeah. Mr. Franklin, did you have something?
Do we know why Capital Roofing and Roof One were so far apart? Did they give any kind of?
They didn't give any kind of, I mean, I could only speculate.
There wasn't
Sometimes,
anything-
sometimes they don't want them very bad, and they just throw a high number out there, and if they get it,
Right.
they win, they kill the fatted calf, you know?
Understand.
Occasionally, we do see those sorts of regularities, and I think it speaks to exactly what Wayne just said. I think sometimes they really don't want the work that bad, but listen to the bid just to see what happens.
And there were several within close, and so I.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Mr. Cameron?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One point that I need to bring to the council's attention is that today we got our May revenue numbers in, and so year-to-date, we projected a 3% increase, and so while we're still above last year, it's basically about 0.25% where we're at. And so one of the considerations that I had, and I asked Jared about it today, was postponing that project. We've held off on it for several years since I've been here. I know we've talked about replacing that roof, and so my direction was to go ahead and proceed and recommend approval, even though the discussion, even though it's early in the year, still means it's May, but one thing about it is we're very quick to evaluate where our budget is, our expenses are in line to some extent, but at the same time, revenue's not quite going at the same pace, and so I am recommending it, but I need to make aware that the financials that I received today, at least through May, are not favorable to the 3% increase that we budgeted. And so we are gonna have to monitor that, but this is not a project I think that we can cut out of the budget to make that happen. We'd already budgeted to take this out of the reserve of the additional funds we put into the reserve after 2018, which was substantial. So it's not a position that I feel like that puts us in danger, remotely danger, because we've seen our fund balance grow. But it is something that we're gonna have to continuously monitor. But I wanna make you aware of it before you make that decision, that this was a consideration of potentially cutting it. But I don't believe that's prudent, given the nature of the age of the structure and the more damage it could cause if we don't address it, so, yes.
So, this passes, when would they start?
They have to be completed by July 12th.
They have to be completed by July 12th?
That's correct.
Yeah, in the bid specs, it specifies a completion date by July 12th.
Second quarter is notorious for, and in Missouri, every quarter is storm season, but second quarter is always gonna be your highest storm volume.
Yes.
So, even if it was able to push that through past quarter two, you'd have better odds of no hail, not as much damage that could come through. Just food for thought.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? So are you talking about moving the work back possibly?
If, I'm just stating that that's what they look at as quarter two, so.
What kind of
again,
damage are we taking on right now with the roof as it is?
Well, the existing roof right now has lost most of its granules, so it's down mostly to just the tar paper part of the shingle. And with the last winds we had, we lost several shingles. The new roof is guaranteed 15 years up to 110 mile-an-hour winds. So it's a very sturdy roof. So for the next 15 years, if it was to blow off for some reason, that would be covered under warranty.
Mr. Mayor, so question, Wayne, could we at least in the contract amend it to push it back 30 days and say, hey, listen, we'll allow you to finish by August 31 and allow them more
We
time?
could. The only thing that I would caution on that is roofing in the dead of summer damages the shingles when you're walking on them
Gotcha.
as you roof.
Hey, I'll defer to you, man. You sound like you
So I would prefer to have them on in cooler weather, either earlier or much, much later, like September or October.
You sound like a guy that's gonna get up there and put shingles down, right?
I've just seen them when you walk all over them a bunch in hot
Gotcha.
weather.
If
Yeah.
he's got a warranty, he's got that.
Cool.
rated for it, like this, yeah.
So I guess that's back to Mr. Self's comment. If we've got the warranty, we don't have to worry about the storm that might come after. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you'd hate to put something brand new and then like the next week, but if you get that, so, and you said slightly different roof too, so
Yes, this is probably a little better grade of shingle than what's on there currently.
Right.
This is a mid-grade certainty, 50-year shingle.
Yeah.
Is the bid have a time limit?
90 days.
90 days.
90.
Are you comfortable
The
moving forward
bid
with that
award
motion?
was on April 26th, so it'd be 90 days from now.
Okay. Anything else from council? There is no motion on the floor. We'll move forward to vote on it as it is. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to resolution number 19-R-16.
It's just Andrew.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to execute a second change order for the Hines and Oakwood transportation improvements. Need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Mr. Nelson.
Good evening. In Phase 2 on Hines and Oakwood, we found what we call unsuitable material under the road. Not uncommon, but not something really that you can absolutely plan for. You find it when you excavate the old road, and as you can imagine, roads didn't have the same standard back when Oakwood was probably constructed originally. So basically, when the contractor excavated for the new wider road, we found, like, if you want to call it black dirt, stuff that you really can't compact and build a road on. So in order to meet MoDOT standards for compaction, we authorized them to remove and replace with suitable fill, which in this case is just rock, bigger rock, and mixed on the top with some clay. But they gave us a price of $29.81 per cubic yard for this work, which is actually under the process by which you go through to pay for this type of work when you encounter it on a job. MoDOT specifies that you would pay 2 times unclassified excavation, which is a bid item, and 1 times compacting embankment. That would have been roughly double.
Would have been around $44 a cubic yard. This is $29.
Yeah, so the contractor, I think, worked with us really well to give us a price that's fair when they could have exploited a little line in the MoDOT specification book and been at closer to $44 a cubic yard. The total for that work, $66,658.86. To date, that puts us at $103,921.98 for the job. Over currently, that doesn't recognize some of the savings that we've already seen for the project and construction administration and on the utility side.
Okay, any questions, comments, or concerns from council? Did you have something, Mr. Jensen? Nothing at all, okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Moving on to reports from staff, Mr. Cameron. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the finance report. I'm sorry. I have scribbled so much on this paper that I completely overlooked it.
We might want to skip it tonight. No.
No, we want to hear it, good, bad, the ugly.
Yeah. So, I distributed the March financial report, to you guys last, council meeting, but this time we have the April financial report. And we were gonna discuss very briefly the sales tax report that, Mr. Cameron referred to earlier. Unfortunately, our revenue for our sales revenue came in, and it was significantly under for this month compared to the previous month. So overall, our year-to-date is 0.29%. So with the budgetary controls that we have in place, as Mr. Cameron mentioned, we immediately, we're starting to look at what we can do. We have things in our budget that we can look at addressing so that we don't get in a pinch. And that's why we do monitor this very closely. The general fund sales revenue only came in at $187,254.88. For those of you new on council, our first page here, I put the summary, but I also put the worksheets behind so you can see the exact numbers in comparison to the previous years. Something that is very interesting, though, to note that you will see is that March's came in at 10% above, and then April's came in at 11% below. So it's almost like some of the reporting is coming in the different months. So I'm actually going to contact the Department of Revenue tomorrow so we could see if there's something going on or if some payers may be behind before we, it's a concern, but it's not. We're early enough in the year, and it's still really too early to tell for sure. So that's the complete report there. We also have the cash report, and for those new to council, I do put a summary explaining the different kind of classes of cash. We have, of course, our unrestricted cash, which can be used for general purposes in each fund. The designated cash is things that are designated through the budgetary processes. So let's say that we say in the budget we're going to transfer money to the reserve. That is how those funds get placed in there. And then we have the restricted cash. Restricted cash is placed in those accounts because of state statutes or obligations. They're not really our money, we're the pass-through account holders. So on that note, our cash standing is still very good position on the general fund. Our unrestricted cash balance is still $2,887,590.91, and so overall, the unrestricted cash of the city is $7,267,397.40. Looking at some of the things when we were mentioning transferring from a reserve account, we're talking about that designated reserve, and it's the capital replacement right here in the general fund. So that was a reference we made earlier this evening to the transfer for the roof, the $318,000. So over the next section, we have our budget to actual, and I go ahead and I manually put in your budget summary form so you can see the fund data from the actual budget to actual that comes from our software, and then you could use it sort of a summary guide. But basically, the general fund, we still have a net surplus of $451,436, so we're still in a very good position. As I was discussing with staff, we get our property sales tax at the beginning of the year, the real property, and so that is a good portion, and it floats us through the year while our other revenue comes in. Basically, the only thing that right now, we had budgeted a deficit in the street fund to cut because of the Oakwood and Hines project, and so that is not unexpected. And the Parks and Rec Department have actually funded a big project, so they have their deficit. As you know, at the end of the year, they build up their balance back up. So overall, that's $490,409 deficit at the moment, but they still have, cash in their cash account to cover it. So the fire tax fund has a net income of $98,197, and the capital improvement tax fund at this moment has a deficit of, their revenue has been less than their expenditures today of $75,053. But at the beginning of the year, they still had a huge balance from last year because they didn't spend a lot out of the fund. They started with 600 and I believe 35 approximate thousand. So if you have any questions as you go through the budget to actual report, basically the revenues, for those who are newer, are divided out by the department, and you can also, when you get to the expense section, then they're divided out by the departments and the expense. So I've also included the fund balance report so you can see the overall fund balances. I know the summary just tells you the revenue and expenditures, but now we also have that fund balance report. The wastewater fund, of course, has such a large balance of $16 million, and that is mostly due to assets, minus the net after the depreciation. So, does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Russell?
If you find out something from Department of Revenue, will you update us?
I will be happy to.
Because this seems kind of weird, just the way that the percentages are off.
Yeah.
Could this be a function of Walmart getting in their sales tax late for some reason, or something like that? It could be something as simple as that?
Yeah, it definitely could. In fact, when I glanced through the list, I did not see one of our payers listed in the April report. It wouldn't be enough to make the whole difference, but I'm wondering if we have an issue like that. Maybe someone got behind, they might have a new staff member, something of that nature. So I will definitely send out an email to council as soon as I get an update,
Thank you.
if there's one to have, so.
I have a quick question.
Yes,
May not be quick, but it's a question.
yeah.
So we budget based on an expected 3% increase year over year, right?
Yeah, it ranges on previous years. If the year comes in lower, you know, we look at the trend.
Yeah. But this year we budgeted 3%
right.
over last,
Right.
and we're currently 0.29.
Mm-hmm.
So if we see that isn't bouncing back, and we get to a certain point in the year where it becomes a hill that we may not be able to climb,
Right.
have we identified actions that we cut back on? What are those things, or just in general,
Sure.
that we would look at saving money on?
Capital is always the first place. In fact, working with administration, we usually typically try in the general fund to not spend the capital until at least July, so we know the area. We also look at salary positions to see if there's been any vacancies in the year to affect the salary lines. If salary lines are going to be under, we total that up and see where that's going to be. And then, of course, we look at some of the really important but low-lying fruits, so like training, like employee training budgets. We'll, you know, postpone training if we need to, because those are areas that, while they're important for staff to have, they're not, you know, the end of the world if we don't have training. So we have identified, and David might want to expand on that more.
I mean,
So.
unfortunately, I don't want to say that training is a low-hanging fruit. That's probably the worst thing that we can cut. But it's the number one place that you start with. I mean, it's like, for example, any training per se that even my own would have where we'd be traveling out, it's pretty much cut back already now. So you have to look for things like, because we've been hovering above, you know, like 1 year was 7%, 1 year was 4%. So it's been pretty good. So why we do what we do is we monitor it quickly, but at the same time is you always have to consider not filling a position. You may have to look at elimination of a position. Those are just the scary things that do come with it. We don't have the opportunity to not present a balanced budget. But that's difficult to do. So before you do that, you consider a whole range of things before you consider people. It affects everyone, not just one person. So I don't want to create that message that it's there.
Right.
But when asked, I mean, that's how the unfortunate part of government works, and we have to balance our budget. So hopefully those receipts turn around or things go of that nature. But we just have to present what it is at present. So we don't wait till August or September, November. We do that now. So I don't want to send a message that we're looking at cutting something, because we're not. We evaluate capital first, because I always tell people, before we buy a new backhoe, we're going to take care of the person that runs it.
Mm-hmm.
And because that person's far more valuable than a piece of equipment in and of itself. So I don't want anywhere close to that message being resembled, but that's where you start. You cut the piece of equipment out. If that computer can last one more year, or if a roof can last one more year, you consider that. But the benefit of cutting that out of the budget and letting water ruin the building in some nature would be just completely negligent on our part.
Yeah. But the way it looks, I mean, there's a good chance that it's probably some kind of an issue.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, motion is second to approve the finance report.
Motion. Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries 7-0. Now on to reports from staff. Mr. Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good news, Mr. Russell, we have a very large agenda for you next council meeting.
Perfect.
So we got plenty for you to cover. Actually, I think it should be fairly light for the most part, but I do believe the first meeting in June, we have a number of things going on planning and zoning. So I see the first meeting in June being fairly large. I want to draw your attention to one of the things in the budget. You don't have to go back to it, but I'm gonna highlight it for you, is our residential development. I believe, Garrett, you mentioned to me the other day, and I'm just gonna go in broad terms, that we've issued approximately 75 residential permits today, which is actually double, or close to double than where we were the same time last year. And to put that in perspective, so instead of just looking at the total number of permits, I was looking at the budget in and of itself. We're current to date, we're $103,000 ahead of budget from just residential and commercial permits. So while I'd love to say that we can transfer the way the law works in that, which we changed in part of our own accounting principles, is you can't necessarily take money out of the building permit side to go offset other operations in the city, because otherwise you're charging a building permit fee and it cannot go to pay a bunch of people that's not related to buildings. So, but that, to speak to that, the development community is alive and well in Republic, and we continue to see a lot of developments going on, and that's not slowing down anytime soon, looking at the agenda going up before P&Z. So, that's a pretty interesting highlight. I will say this, Mike Landis, I appreciate the work you've done with the railroad crossings. We have taken, one thing about it is it's very difficult when it's not your agency that's dealing with it, but you want to provide a service to the community, which is what we do, providing a communication tool to talk about it. When you have no control of that agency, and you tell them you're gonna close that crossing and it doesn't cross, I admire you for the work that you're doing, but unfortunately, it seems to land that we're the ones that have control over those crossings. But thank you for your proactivity to communicate that. We still to this date not sure when they're closing MM, but, Mike, I appreciate your tenacity to go, I know it's frustrating, and, but I appreciate the work that you've done with that. In the admin report that apparently did not make it to the table tonight is a grant application for pedestrian bridge. Staff is working on a pedestrian bridge across 60 Highway. And so you'll be seeing this application, for what they call, is it called a build grant? Build grant, which is a federal grant. I know Senator Hawley's office, is now engaged in the process. And I'm looking forward to bringing that, which we have to request permission to apply for that grant. But the designs and the ideas for some kind of a centerpiece of town, not just a little bridge, but something that's very nice, that would be a very nice attraction and a real benefit to our schools and crossing 60. So I appreciate staff working on that. I love the ideas of looking for ways to do this. This would require a 20% match. We will have to figure out how to come up with that 20% match, but I know that Andrew's been working with even private organizations. OTO is involved now. MoDOT obviously is involved. So I appreciate the work that you guys are doing in pursuing that grant. The citywide cleanup. So this has kind of got a interesting connotation to it, because I thank you staff, and I thank this council for bringing this this opportunity, allowing us to add this to the budget several years ago. It's a blessing, and it's also got its challenges. This year, let me just start with last year. Last year we hauled out 125 tons. This year we hauled out 243 tons. That sounds like a good thing, but it's trending the wrong direction, especially when I bring up the budget challenges and the things that we do. Typically, I've done these for several years in the community that I was at before, and historically you start seeing your tonnage go down. And it kind of lends itself to people bringing material from outside the community into our community. So as many vehicles I saw going out on my road, I also saw those bringing them in. And so we're going to have to work, which is a good thing, on some sort of a system that turns in those things, or it's going to be a service that we're no longer going to be able to provide. And so, especially when we're talking about our budget and the challenges that we're facing, those are going to be real challenges that we need to face. I'm not saying we're cutting it, but it was one of the areas that we targeted that needs some sort of work. But I appreciate everybody that got their material out there. We had so much they had to come back. They're actually going to be coming back to us. They did not account for this many, so they added an additional 312, I believe it's 312 man hours that they're asking for us to somehow come up with a way, because there was so much material that was not anticipated. We're just trending in the wrong direction. So historically, these go the other way. You're not adding, doubling the amount of trash in your town. After we've done this is our third year. Historically, it goes about 25, 30 tons the other way. So we were anticipating probably more like 85, 90 to 100, not 245 tons. So that's an unbudgeted item that we're going to have to cover. But it is, I'm glad we do this for our community. It's something that we need. We want a clean community. And I think this is great for our citizens. It's for the citizens of Republic. It's not for citizens outside the community. Family and friends don't get to utilize that program. And so bringing it to the house or something like that. So we're going to have to work on some way to help work on curtailing that situation. But we will continue to potentially put this in, we'll hopefully continue this program, because it's very good for our community. Which leads me to code enforcement. So part of the cleanup, the effort is to help citizens that are struggling with code enforcement, where maybe they got material, they need to clean it up. We prefer to work it out through the citywide cleanup, get it to the curb versus having to see Scott in the prosecutor's office dealing with unsightly properties. So I commend the staff, the work that's going on. I want to clarify that we as a staff, we are not allowed to look in mailboxes. We're not allowed to go in people's backyards, and so that's something that we've discussed as an organization, just to watch out for what we can and cannot do. But I also want to clarify that we cannot drive down city streets looking for code violations. So technically, if there is a problem in someone's neighbor and it's unsightly and there's grass growing, unfortunately, even if I'm driving down the road and I see something that absolutely just, I'm like, that's atrocious, they need to clean that up. Calling code enforcement, they cannot go out, I mean, the neighbor, the person that's offended by that or harmed by that is the one that needs to turn in the complaint. So if you receive a call and someone's asking you to address the situation and send the code enforcement out to address it, you need to encourage them to file a complaint with code enforcement so that they can follow through with it. That's the best way to do it. I appreciate the staff's effort. They are taking a stronger effort to get to those grass complaints in a timely fashion. We also have nuisance and vacant buildings that we need to address, and so staff is working on a way that they can address abating those properties that have been vacated or damaged that cannot be repaired. And so they are working on a process that we'll be bringing where we could potentially be taking over those properties, cleaning them up, potentially selling the land at a later date. It's just something that we're considering, but again, that's something that we would bring, especially if we acquire something that's within our budget. We have $15,000 a year for abatements. We may acquire it, bring it to you in executive session for the potential sale so that we can recover our cost. But also it helps those neighbors because it's going to get tied up in courts and search warrants and just all the things that have to go into place to abate those issues. I think people, the community has an idea that what we do is we have the ability to go out there and just clean it up like that. Sometimes it can get held up in court for years. And so I like the idea, the creativity that staff is taking to look for those ways to do it. I appreciate the work that code enforcement does. I can't imagine a job where would be any less desirable other than police officers going out and having to enforce it. Think about a lot of these folks that code enforcement are talking to are people that they're trying to uphold the law. They're not trying to look for trouble, and all of a sudden they got an enforcement officer at their door. I admire the work that Chuck is doing and trying to get that done. OTO. So I brought an exhibit this week. Every year we sit down with the OTO leadership. That's the Ozark Transportation Organization. And we go over priorities that are for Republic. So they ask us, hey, what are your priorities as an organization, as a community, to address those? And so what I've done is I've provided you what staff has put together that we'll be discussing. I believe that's Thursday. It just kind of outlines where we're at. One area I want to point out that's very creative and outside the box is on Highway 60. It's hard to tell, but there's two dotted lines, two green lines. That is the outer road, I presume. And that's a different intersection, which is actually the McConnell property, or that in that area, which would be actually moving the intersection of MM and 60 to that idea. So the idea of them being able to utilize that site with a traffic light potentially in the future would be at that site, but also at the same time it would have outer lanes. But that's the property where that's at. You also see the intersection improvements that we're talking about at Hines and 174, or no, Hines and M, right? Hines and ZZ. And then, what's the other one? 174 and ZZ. Farm Road 174 and ZZ. So you'll see improvements to Republic Road. These are things from a capacity improvement. These are just things that we are targeting. Other than 174 and 60, you got Main and 174. So basically, when we sit down, we just go over what our priorities are as a community. I just kind of wanted to share that with the council tonight, because not that these projects are going to happen, because as we know, the funding got cut. They do have this new bill for bridges, and I think we'll get about 15 million of that should that federal transportation project go along, but no clear word on that just yet. But we'll be meeting with them Thursday, and just kind of wanted you to see what our priorities were as a staff. It's not something we have to vote on, it's just something that we're presenting. I will tell you this is by far the most robust and most thorough thought out plan that has ever been presented to OTO from the city. And so I appreciate the staff and the collaboration and the think tank that we have together that put this together. I think this was an incredible product, and so thank you for putting it together for us. Lastly, and I'll be really quick with these two, but we preach processes, relationships, and trust. I mean, we're about process improvement, we're about relationship improvement, we're about building trust. One thing that I want you to see tonight is you got April's financial report on May 7th. What that tells you is the stealth nature by which we're operating, that the financials can close out in 1 month, be presented to you in less than, they were actually done in less than 7 days. But I'll tell you what the new software is doing for us. And then the last one that I have, because that's how we can make decisions in a timely manner. I can look down tonight and see what, at the end of close of April, I can tell you what our expenses were, what revenue is. As a CEO, if you will, looking at that, I can make financial decisions rather than knee-jerk reactions. You could say, hey, let's cut back on this and let's take a look. So I appreciate the work and what the software is doing for us, the new Tyler software. There are certain parts of the Tyler software that are just not functioning like they said. And so we're gonna be meeting with them and talking to them. But I will tell you that this portion of the Tyler software is impeccable. It is getting us information and timely data. The last picture, I gave you a picture, and sometimes it's not, picture's worth 1,000 words. That is our payroll. If you everybody got their picture? That was our payroll a year ago, and what it was taking to generate a payroll report for our community. And sometimes, when I talk to people about processes and relationships and trust, if you want to ask me what really lights me up and what really makes me encouraged, I love new development, I love where we're going, but that's really not the core. If we get our fundamentals right through process improvement, relationship improvement, and trust, all the rest will follow. And when I see stuff like this, it excites me because I could probably show you 200 things that's just like that, but I couldn't put it in a picture. So when Lisa sent me this today, I'm like, that captures the processes that we're changing all the time. This one just captured it for me where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna share that with council tonight. And last but not least, I wanna wish, and I know my mother watches every single council meeting because I'm her son, I love her. But I wanna wish all the mothers a happy Mother's Day, those mothers to be. Thank you for all that you do for us. We love you. And I just hope everybody has a great day and enjoy their weekend. And that's all I have.
Thanks.
Well, I have a lot to say.
Well, you got it. I'm glad.
My report.
One thing, real quick, I got a text before we started the meeting was about some Andrews folks, I believe. And it was really good. They just wanted to give some feedback that they had dealt with, or they called in a problem that they needed some grass needing cut by sidewalk between Schuler and Wood Road. And they were just amazed that they got a reply from an email within an hour and that grass was taken care of that afternoon. So that's a citizen that was very happy. The pedestrian bridge, I think that's something that we could all help with politically. I mean, any contacts that we have that could possibly help us to work toward getting this grant, because I think anybody who has Facebook probably sees the post that go on there about kids that are darting back and forth across in front of McDonald's on 60, and it is an issue. I mean, there are crosswalks there, but a pedestrian bridge is honestly just what's needed to take care of that problem. So anything we can do to help that along would be great, because it's not just something we want. I mean, it's actually a need that we really should have. Something David hit on that is exciting to me, we had the citywide cleanup, and hearing the tonnage though, and what you said about that is a concern that we're increasing by that much. And obviously that is something we would cut before we would get to ever cutting any kind of positions, but that is a service we give to the city, but we need people to be responsible with that and only put their items out. Not everybody that they know who live in every other city. But along with that citywide cleanup, it's also nice to know that we're getting more aggressive on abandoned properties and nuisances. Because I think oftentimes cities are kind of afraid to step into that realm and take care of a property that really needs to be dealt with. And you see an eyesore that sits for years and becomes worse, and then properties around it lose value, and then it becomes a neighborhood issue. So thank you guys for being preemptive and actually caring enough to really get aggressive after that. I don't, as a city, ever want to take anyone's property from them. But we also have to understand that if it's affecting the city and you've been given ample opportunity in a day in court, then we need to do what we need to do to make sure that those neighbors are looked after as well. So, thank you guys very much. I'll move on. Mr. Self, start with you.
I want to echo what David said about Happy Mother's Day to moms, stepmoms, grandmas, anyone who's been a motherly figure to anyone out there in a positive manner. Happy Mother's Day. And also, congratulations to all the graduates out there, whether it's Republic, Billings, Clever, anyone in the area. We're all connected. It seems like we're 3 people away from knowing everyone in Southwest Missouri. So anyway, congratulations to all the graduates, an exciting time. I think Dr. Winstrom mentioned today at the chamber meeting that they handed out, I think, like 4 million? 4 million in scholarships, which is awesome. So that's all I have.
Mr. Wilson?
I don't have a lot. I do the Mother's Day. I think if we didn't have the mothers, we wouldn't be here. So it's a good. But, no, I think that pedestrian overpass on 60 would be a great thing to do. To me, it's just a matter of time before one of those kids gets hit. I've saw a kid hit before, and it's not pretty. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, sir. No Mr. Jones tonight, so Mr. Bashir.
I really agree with what you said, Mayor, about the different eyesores and the abatement process or whatever. And appreciate the city staff on doing what they can as far as the limits of what they can. I know through state legislature, state law, and so forth, there's things that we would like to do that we can't.
Right.
But it would be unimaginable almost to live across or next door to some of the properties that we have in this city. You can have a house, what the value would be, but if you live next door to some of the things that we have, you wouldn't sell your house. I don't think you probably could give it away. And I know Scott's working on some things that we've also. But anyway, it's a major concern. I'm glad we had the different proclamations tonight. The last one on the list here was the city employees. And we really appreciate the city employees. They're second to none unless it be the teaching staff that we have at our schools. But I'm just joking on that. But we appreciate you guys very much. The city is no stronger than the weakest employee that we have. I think it's like a chain. We link, it affects the whole chain. So appreciate you guys. I don't know what we'll have on the meeting for next month, or not next month, the next meeting. But council, try to think of as many amendments as you can. I'd like to see how Matt will handle that.
I can handle it.
Okay, I've got faith in you.
Thank you, sir.
That's all I have.
All right, Mr. Franklin?
Echo the happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, expectant mothers, and everyone else. A lot of great feedback from the citywide cleanup. It was something that a lot of people are very thankful to have that, and so that's very appreciated. A lot of really good feedback coming from everybody in my neighborhood. It's one of the most interesting nights I've ever had to drive through Republic. Very, very entertaining Friday evening. I'd like to extend to the City of Republic employees on the Appreciation Week. Thank you very much for all of the hard work that you do. It's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Poole.
Well, I agree with these about the ones that are graduating. I'm thankful for our school. I see kids from other schools, and it makes me more thankful for Republic schools and our superintendent and the people that work with them. Also, being a mother, I appreciate you guys considering us as mothers and being appreciative of the mothers. And also the overpass for the young people. I go to a hairdresser that's close to I guess it's middle school, used to be high school. And those kids, young people, pay no attention to what they're doing when they're crossing the streets. They might be punching each other or acting silly, and could be very dangerous. And I think that would be a very good thing if we can have something like that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
As the weather changes, it starts to get warmer. Excuse me, I'm getting over something. But as the weather changes and it starts to get warmer, I see our Parks and Rec do wonderful work. We're getting ready to send our boys to the rec program, the summer rec program. It is professionally ran. It is well put together for just a group of kids to be able to be safe in Republic. Every time we drive by a park, it's full now. It's really great to see, and I'm a lawyer, I go to other communities, I drive past a lot of parks. Nothing's like ours. So I try to come up with something original for reports. My original statement is, thank you to our Parks and Rec. It is outstanding, and this warmer weather just makes me think about it, and I appreciate it, so thank you. And Robert's Rules of Procedure strictly enforced next week. I'm just saying.
Hold on, did you say you're a lawyer?
No. Yeah.
Are you saying they have it down for us?
You know, interesting.
Thank you. Mr. Dyken?
Well, I think, with our proclamation this week for the staff, I think it's great because, as I've said many times in the past, we've got the greatest staff any city could have. And as a council, I think when we're out, and if you see any of the staff, don't forget to say thank you to them. It means a lot to them. I mean, I see them different places, the policemen, firemen, street workers, water, I always try to tell them that I appreciate their work. And I think it does help because it makes them feel that, we're not here just trying to see what we can do to do some things and not think about them, because we do. And, I think, the Mother's Day is very important to current, past mothers and future mothers. And that it is an important day to them. And we need to, as a guy, we need to, even if you have no children, as I don't, my wife's still a mother to me. Takes every day.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, after 49 years, she's getting it down. So, but it takes a mother mentality to put up with me for that many years.
Right.
But you didn't have to agree. But that's all I have.
Well, I would say my wife would say she doesn't have 4 kids, she has 5. I think every wife is probably that way. The last thing I have is we've gone through all of our throughout this entire time, we've found things in the meetings that maybe we can shorten up a little bit or make streamlined or just try to make it more efficient. So I didn't want to just do this without telling you, but nothing requires us to have a motion and a second to adjourn unless we're going into an executive session. So at the end of meetings, I'm just going to ask if anybody has anything else, and if it's no, I'm just going to adjourn. Right, Mr. Squibb? All right. So does anybody have anything else? And we'll practice it for the first time. We're adjourned.
I like it.
That was quick.
It actually was.